You're listening to Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair. For more information, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at SBT Songs, or check us out at chrisblair.com. What's up, everybody? This is Chris Blair, and you are listening to another episode of Stories Behind the Songs. And this week, we've got my buddy Brice Long with us on the podcast. Brice has written songs for guys like Gary Allan, Jon Pardi, Randy Houser, George Strait, Cody Johnson, and many more. Brice has tons of wisdom to share when it comes to getting a start in Music City. This is a guy who started off struggling to pay his bills and has come full circle with several hits for major artists and even starting his own foundation, which he created to give back to the community. This week, we focus on the stories behind Nothing On But the Radio by Gary Allan, Heartache on the Dance Floor by Jon Pardi, and Like a Cowboy and Anything Goes by Randy Houser. Brice, like many Nashville songwriters, had a record deal with RCA and got dropped. But he secured a #1 with Gary Allan that same year, and he's going to talk about his collaboration with Jon Pardi and several songs and everything that happened after that. He's going to emphasize hard work and the importance of jumping on a good opportunity. On this episode, we're also going to cover how his work with Randy Houser has gone, including the CMA-nominated Like a Cowboy, opening many doors and helping his foundation back to back, where he has helped over 150 families in the community. Brice is extremely humble and throughout this episode consistently credits God mixed with hard work for his success. I love this dude so much. I've known him for years and I just can't say enough good things about him. He's an amazing, amazing, amazing guy. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to give us a follow and check out our Stories Behind the Songs playlist on Spotify to hear more songs by Brice and many other of our guests. And as always, a shout out to our sponsors, Sennheiser, Imperfect Esthetician, and All Clear In-Ears. If you're looking for a great set of in-ear monitors, make sure to check out our code SBT Songs and you get 10% off at checkout. All right, let's get to it. Here is my buddy, Brice Long. All right, everybody, we are back, and I'm here with my buddy Brice Long. How you doing, brother?
Good, Chris. Good to see you, pal.
Good to see you, too. Appreciate you taking some time and sitting down with us to dig into the stories behind the songs.
Absolutely. Glad to be here, man. Thank you for asking me to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, we've been friends for a long time, and, I've gotten to have you play every stage of the building of the listening room through the years. That's been really cool, and just kind of watch your career, and really excited to just dive into some of the smash hits that you got. But before we even go there, you're from Kentucky. Mm-hmm. I always kind of start this way, so just kind of walk us through how you got into music in the first place and what brought you from Hopkinsville to Tennessee.
Yeah, for me, I grew up. My dad's whole side of the family played music, not necessarily professionally, but like my grandmother played piano in church, played by ear, was amazing piano player, and my dad sang, and his brothers and sisters sang, and man, every time we had family gatherings or anything like that, music was a big part of it. I mean, we all stood around the piano and sang hymns, and then my dad sang country songs, and my uncle played fiddle, and it was, music was just a part of growing up for me. And I grew up on a farming kind of ranching thing up in Kentucky, and man, in the truck, on the tractor, whatever it was, if we were working, and music was everywhere. I mean, it was always on, and country stations, and so, as a kid, I just grew up loving country music and music in general, really. And then, I played music through high school and that kind of thing. And then, moved down here in 93 and finished school at MTSU and just kind of fell into it. I'd opened for several artists come through my town fair and a lot of other things too, as far as just different artists that I had opportunity to open for because I was playing and then it just led to me moving. I met a guy named Clarence Spalding, man. He taught me into moving to town, and Clarence is huge, manager in this town, a great, probably one of my favorite people that I've met through the years and just been very good to me and taught me into giving it a shot. He saw me open for, I was opening for Eddie Rabbitt at the time. He was managing Eddie, doing the day-to-day work on Eddie. And, of course, he's gone on to manage Brooks and Dunn and Jason Aldean and, just develop an amazing career as a manager and just an amazing person. He's been so good to me and a good friend through the years. And so I moved here and just kind of got in the middle of it, Chris.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was 93.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like it was yesterday, but
I know,
it was
right?
a long time
ago. When you moved here, I mean, you're one of those guys, that I've told you this before, but your voice is just so amazing.
Thank you, man.
We have there's a lot of that in town, but there's the ones that are focused on the artist career,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's the handful of great writers that also could be artists themselves.
Sure.
When you were opening up for these guys and all of that, was what was your goal when you first moved here? Was it more to be a writer or to be an artist?
No, my first love has always been performing. And that was the kind of the thing that brought me to town. I mean, like I said, I was playing where I'm from and going around different places. I kind of got in with a guy who was doing some shows in Alabama and Florida and stuff like that. And I'd go open for guys like Freddie Fender and Sawyer Brown and Eddie and Razzie Bailey and, just guys that anywhere I could get to play. And so that's what brought me. I mean, the chance to get a record deal and all that kind of stuff was really what I wanted to do. And then the songwriting part of it for me was something I always, wanted to do. But the initial thing that really brought me to town was wanting to get a record deal and be the singer.
Yeah.
And then when I got in college, I started writing more and it just developed into me, chasing that as much because it's always, it's cool to be able to do both. And the singing part of it was, something I've always enjoyed, but the songwriting part of it is really, man, that's become the thing that I probably, in all honesty, maybe enjoy a little more than the performing part of it these days. But, to get back to your question, I wanted that elusive record deal that everybody moves to town, for.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting a couple of them. I had two different opportunities and I always say this, but it's like, I never wanted to be famous. That wasn't my goal. And that part of it's working out good.
Yeah.
So, I'm cool with that, man. I just, I still love to play. I still love to play a lot, and I do. But the songwriting part of it is as much an enjoyment to me as the playing live these days.
Yeah. We've got such a similar story. I graduated high school in 93 as well. Took me a little bit longer to get here, but, moved here, same thing, chasing that dream to be an artist and put songs out to radio, and it did it for a little bit, but, then fell in love with the writing. And, for me, it was, starting the listening room.
Sure.
For somebody that moves here, chasing that dream, looking at everything that you've accomplished, now you've got all these smash #1 hits. And, I was in a studio over in Berry Hill last week and told you before we started this, I hear this voice coming from down the hall, and I was like, is that Brice Long down there by any chance? They're like, yeah. So
that's cool.
You're still in there, you're still doing it. You're and it just, you can see it when you perform here, and that's just an acoustic ground sitting on a stool. Right. But like, I can see it in your face and, just everything, just how much you love it.
Yeah, so. Man. I mean, it's a grind, that, man. You've done it. We've all done it, and we still do it. But, for that, whatever it is, hour and a half or whatever you get to play and get to, share your songs and stories and all that kind of stuff, with a crowd, it just, I don't know. It's that part of it that just makes it all worth it, because we all, I mean, every artist, writer, I mean, the hours and time we put into this and the ups and downs and all that, goes along with being in this crazy business we're all chasing, you still get to, you get to have fun, man, and play a show, and people, you get to look out and, in this room and people are singing along with the words and melody you created, and it never gets old, but it's a lot of work to get to that, and a lot of hours, and a lot of songs that never get heard.
Oh man, yeah. I was just talking to somebody yesterday about that. It's like, all of the great songs. Actually, it was Brett from the studio that I, we were talking yesterday. It was like all the songs that you get to hear that nobody else does, and it's it's just magical. But speaking of, let's start to dive into some lyrics.
Cool.
And you've you've just had an awesome career, and so let's dive into Nothing On But the Radio, Gary Allan.
All right.
Tell that story. How did that come about?
Well, it was, I wrote that with Byron Hill and Odie Blackman. And at the time, we were writing songs to try to get me a record deal. They were producing. Odie and I met he was the very first guy I met at MTSU, man, in one of my very first classes. We sat in a big, it was a big kind of theater room, and I don't know, probably 100 kids in there, I guess, or 100 seats in there, whatever. And I sat down, and he came in, sat down right behind me. It was just one of those, moments that I truly believe is just heaven sent. I think God put us together, and we met that day and struck up a friendship, and he was wanting to, write songs and produce, and I was wanting to be an artist and a songwriter, and we, we became really good friends, and that led to, he knew Byron, and he introduced me to Byron, and we, kind of started writing songs and trying to work on a project to help, get me a record deal. And we did. And I think there was 6 or 7 songs, maybe, or 5 or 6 back then that we put on a little, project to pitch around. And that was one of the songs. Nothing On But the Radio was one of the songs that we had written. And it was actually, we had a write that day. And like I said, we'd been working on every song we were writing. We were trying to, cater towards me to try to get a record deal. And that was one of them. Byron called. He had that idea. I mean, he called Odie and I both the day before, and he said, "Hey, I think this is a cool idea. We should write this tomorrow." And Byron being the seasoned vet in the room, he just, helped us try to write the best song we could. Odie and I, we were both young writers, and Byron had already had hits, and so we got together the next day and just took off writing it and tried to keep it as radio friendly and straight down the middle as we could. And we really truly felt like that day that we had written a hit.
Yeah.
It only took about 5.5 years for the rest of the world to understand what we felt like. That's just how long it took. And we had pitched that project around and got a couple meetings out of it and with different A&R people in town, but I didn't get a deal. But everybody kind of gravitated towards that song, and that song went on hold for a few different artists, in that time, but it didn't get cut, Chris, as happens all the time,
sure.
And but in the meantime, I had gotten a record deal at RCA, and I remember Renee Bell, she signed me over there, and she wanted me to cut that song. But we went in a meeting about cutting the first few sides of my record at RCA, and head of the label didn't think that was a hit. And we didn't end up cutting it, which is fine, because the reality of it was, Gary Allan cut it probably about a couple of months later, or maybe, I was still at RCA, but Gary cut that song and then put it out at country radio the year that they let me go from RCA. When I got dropped over there, Gary put it out that year, and it ended up 2 weeks at #1 by December, the end of that year.
Yeah.
And so the reality of me saying that is, as much as it kind of was a downer that it didn't, they didn't let me cut it at RCA, it never would have ended up where it ended up if I had cut it, because I think I cut like 18 songs over there, and they never could find that elusive first single to put out on me, and if that song if we'd have cut it, it had just been in that pile of tunes over there, and so once again, you know how I am, man. I just, God has driven this thing. And when I felt like it was some things that were kind of a downfall, it was, if I'd just be patient and watch what he does, later on in that year, man, you'd have told me the first of the year I lost that deal at RCA and I didn't get, cut that song in that process and all that stuff, I was kind of let down trying to figure out what to do. And then by the end of that year, I had a 2-week number one single, and that's how quick things can happen in this town. And what you feel like a lot of days is like, man, it's just another dead end road or another, downer. It just turns into something positive, and it's just for the timing. And, I don't know any other way to look at it. It's like, it wasn't right for me, but it sure was right for Gary and his career. And as a songwriter, it did a ton for me.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
number one in 2003. And then like, what was, what was the timing after that? Like how, doors that opened or, anything like that? You're leaving RCA and then all of a sudden this happens. And
yeah, it was crazy because, I lost that deal at RCA in January of that year and, ended up getting signed at Sony like in May or June of that same year. And that song had came out at country radio. And after it being a hit, I think it happens to everybody. You start getting other things cut and you start getting a little more momentum and having, other opportunities to get in rooms with, different writers and it's you hope that it's going to, continue, and it does. I mean, there were other, songs that got cut and put out as singles and that's, that was my first number one hit. And, and it came at just the right time, man. It was, I laugh about it, but like Carrie and I got married and, a week before I lost my deal at RCA, and then I lost my pub deal right after that. And it was like, holy smokes, man, what's going on here? I'm sure she's real happy she married me now.
Yeah.
But, like I said, and God bless Scott Simon, who was managing me at the time, man. He it's crazy, this business, but the people you meet in it, Chris, and you'll know what I'm saying is, there's a lot of good people in this business, man. And Scott Simon was managing me, and I lost my deal, my pub deal at the same time. And man, he paid me out of his own pocket for 3 months till he got me another record deal and another pub deal. I mean, that guy's a special guy to me. And especially at that time, man, I just got married and trying to figure out, oh my gosh, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And then, and turn right around, man. By the end of that year, I had a huge hit on the radio and it's a crazy town, but that's how quick things can change.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you think about it.
Yeah. Well, things kept rocking for you. And then, I want to dive into, Heartache on the Dance Floor. Mm-hmm. How did that song even come about? I mean, huge hit for Jon. And I want to just dive really into this one. Because there was so much positivity that came out of that.
Yeah. It was a big record, man. It was, I had What I Can't Put Down was a single on him off his first record. And the thing about Jon and I, we're really, really good friends. And we hit it off from the very first time that we got together to write. There's just something special about that guy. I mean, he's very unique, his sound. And I, Chris, in all honesty, I'd had a good run with Gary. I had a couple big hits on him and cuts and so, that California thing I thought was cool because Jon being from California too. So when I first met him, I was like, man, I kind of want to, because he didn't have his record deal when I first wrote with him or first met him. And I was thinking, golly, could this guy, I felt like he was a star, truly did. I mean, I'll be honest with you. The first time that I met him and was in a room with him, I thought, man, this guy's, there's something to this, this guy's got it. Yeah. He's got it. And he was real, so energetic and wanted to work. I mean, he just, I don't know. I just felt like, man, this guy's got the quality that, and then in all honesty, he played, that his, he got signed after doing that. It was at your place that he played, man. I was there. And I remember watching his showcase, and he came out and played, and he had acoustic guitar, and then he reached around, he picked up the Telecaster and put it on. And when I saw that, I remember standing there thinking, yeah, this guy's a star. I mean, just the way he played, just the way he performed that day, I went, oh yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, I kind of knew it, but when I saw him live, I thought, man, this guy, and he's a kid then, he was young, and I thought, man, this boy's a star. And so after he got his record deal and he cut What I Can't Put Down, and then they put it out, and it was a single that did okay. It really, it didn't do chart-wise what it did live. I mean, I saw it. I got to see the people, and the impact that song made on people live at his live shows. And then we just got on a bus, as we all do, jumped on a bus with him and started, writing songs with him as much as I could. And then he was playing a show in outside of Wichita, Kansas, I think his festival, if I remember correctly. And Bart Butler and I, his producer at the time, we got on a bus separate from Jon's, because he was out on a bus with the band and everything, and went out on the road and met him out there. And I'll never forget it, man. He came running on the bus as soon as we got there, and he said, man, I think I got something. And he picked up a guitar, and man, he just, he picked up a guitar and said, where's she at, where's she at, where's she at tonight, where's she at, where's she at, where's she at tonight. And he had that part of it, man, and he goes, and I said, Jon, that sounds like a hit. I said, man, go play your show, do your thing. And we went out and watched him play. It was early in the festival, because I remember Thomas Rhett was on that festival. I think Flats maybe was closing that night, but he was early on in that set, because it was a big festival, and you know how they do. I mean, the younger artist or the artist just, with a hit or so are kind of opening the day. And Jon was in the middle of that, and when he got through playing, man, he hopped on the bus with us, and we went off to, I forget where he was playing the next night, but we rode the bus down the road, and we wrote that song and another song called All Time High that he cut on his California Sunrise record back to back that day. We wrote both them songs. We finished Heartache on the Dance Floor, wrote it, and then I had an idea called All Time High and threw it out at him, and we wrote that too. Like I said, both of them back to back, and he ended up cutting them both and took Heartache to number one. But that came from Jon. I mean, that fell right out of Jon. He goes, man, you like this? And I was like, man, I think it sounds like a hit. That right there, whatever that is. And we developed that story. We just, he and I, kind of kicked it off and just developed that story around, what it is. And we finished it, and he put down a cool guitar vocal of it on the bus, and they took it in and cut a great record on it, he and Bart. I think he had 3 number ones in a row, Head Over Boots, and then Dirt on My Boots, and then Heartache, all, and that record was an amazing record. I mean, that record, whole top to bottom songs and everything, that was a game changer for Jon, man. Yeah. And it still is, I think, probably his best selling record, right now. But it was cool to be a part of, man. That was a good little trip to be on, man. Those songs we wrote out there.
Yeah. He's still a workhorse, man. I think it was last year that he was out with Lainey. Mm-hmm. And I went out to Vegas and went to the show. It was just really cool, just sitting with Jon and Lainey, like both who played Listening Room a ton back in the day.
You bet.
And, it just all day long, just, he's a part of setting it up. And, he's not one of those artists that sits on the bus or,
No, that's the cool thing about Jon. And that was the thing that I noticed, Chris, early on. And I think that's why we really hit it off as friends, man. It's like, he grew up California, at work. I mean, he worked every day, and that work ethic, man. I think you learn that from, his dad's, is tough on him, and just, they did a lot of dirt work and stuff, running big, heavy equipment and that kind of thing. And Jon knew how to work. I mean, he knew how to work from when he came to town. There's not a lazy bone in him. That's why he's got that
big sponsorship.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Case, yeah. But I think that's, truly, Lainey, there's another one.
Yeah.
I mean, you will not outwork that girl.
Yeah.
I mean, she is special. She's got all the talent, all the heart and grit, and you will not outwork that girl, man. She is tough as nails. And once again, grew up with a dad who was a rancher kind of guy, and man, the work ethic. I mean, this town, you say you want to come to this town and be successful. How bad do you want it?
Yep.
There's 2 artists right there that wanted it really bad, and they still to this day work as hard as I've seen anybody. And I was the same way. My dad was, he was tough on us growing up, but man, we worked from daylight to dark. And I think that's a lot of the success that goes along with this business is how bad you want it and how bad, how much are you willing to put in to get it?
Yeah.
And that's, to me, that's always been a part of the business is, man, hustle.
Yeah.
Hustle. Write them songs, play them shows, do whatever you have to do to be successful, because it's funny, the more you show up, the more successful you are. The more work you put in it, it's, the more successful you'll be.
This episode is brought to you by Sennheiser microphones. When we first started this podcast, we were using some older microphones, and Sennheiser came in and sponsored us and gave us some MK4s and 914s. And I'm telling you, it's made all of the difference in the world. We love these microphones. We use them at the listening room as well. And I just can't say enough great things about them. Go check out Sennheiser.com. If you are into music in any way, their microphones are hands down the best on the planet. Go check them out, Sennheiser.com. And thank you, Sennheiser, for the support and the sponsorship. We love y'all. Yeah. It's, again, there's so many parallels with us that we've talked about through the years, but, growing up, working on my grandparents' 500-acre farm and,
sure.
Watching my dad, it's the same kind of thing. He always worked, and that's, that feeds into me, and it's hard, especially with a family, sometimes it's hard for me to turn it off. I just,
sure.
I can't stop working sometimes, but
sure.
especially like in this industry, like you talked about, losing your deal at RCA and then losing your pub deal and just getting married and all of that. Like, this is the hardest industry, I think, to make it in.
Yeah.
And get a paycheck.
Yeah.
But it's the guys like you and Jon and Lainey that want it that bad. That's like, hey, you know what? This is what I'm meant to do.
Yeah.
And you just do what you got to do. So.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, you think about it, it's like, man, I don't know what else. If you had to, you'd figure it out, but it's like, this is what I want to do and this is what I'm good at. So I just want to figure out how to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And it's, it's like I told you earlier. We've known each other a long time. I've seen you in that Cummins station listening room, and I know the struggles that you went through and you stayed hooked. I told you that earlier. It's like, man, the reason that this is successful now and where you are is because you didn't give up on it. And it's the same way with us. You think there wasn't opportunities that I just went, oh man, I might need to figure something else out. But once again, and you know how I am, man. It's faith, man. I just felt like, man, God gave me this talent. I want to use it.
Yep.
And if I can just stay hooked and try to, show up every day and matter, something good's going to happen. But if I choose to go and leave it and do something else, then it's not going to happen. It's, if you want to pack up and leave and go do something else, man, then no, the chances of having a hit or getting those opportunities to play the shows you want to play and stuff like that, they're not going to happen. You're going to walk away from it.
Guarantee it won't happen if you don't try. Yeah. Before we move off of Jon, let's go back to the bus. Mm-hmm. A lot of times as a songwriter, you walk in and you've got an idea or someone else brings an idea and they've got this whole idea in their head of the way this story's going to go. Right. You said Jon jumped on and he had that beginning lick. And then you made up the story. Can you walk us through, like, as a songwriter, like, what is it like when you're like, was there an idea that Jon brought back and said, hey, I think this is the way that I want this song to go? Or did you guys just start throwing stuff out and just really make up this whole story?
I feel like we just started making up a story around that, Heartache on the dance floor and that kind of groove.
Yeah.
And, Chris, sometimes I just wish we had a movie rolling to remember exactly the way it is. But you get in that kind of groove to where you hear something like that and you're like, okay, my job is to not mess this up. My job is to figure out, okay, this is really cool. I mean, obviously it's a cool melody and it's a Jon thing, because Jon does, when you write with Jon, his melodies are very unique to Jon Pardi.
Yeah,
that's one thing that he always brings to the table when I write with him, is a melody that's just very unique to Jon. And I just felt like, man, that day, this is really cool. It's very unique. I haven't heard this kind of thing. And so we just got to figure out how to make it a story that hopefully will be friendly at radio. That's what I was thinking. And we do it, man. I'd done it for, I mean, you get that opportunity to be, that wasn't the first bus I'd been on. It wasn't the first time I'd been in the room with an artist. It wasn't the first time that, I'd tried to write a hit song, and it all lined up that particular day.
Yeah.
And, thanks to Jon for trusting me with that groove and that idea he had. And, I just felt like we were, in that position, we didn't need to mess it up, honestly, because it was like a very unique, cool groove, idea. The Where She At that he had was so hooky, and it was like, man, we need to not mess this up. Let's figure out how to write this story to where it's beneficial to being on his record and hopefully being a hit at radio. And man, that's what we're, it's what we're hired to do, or that's what we're on those buses to do, is try to figure out how to make a commercial song sound like a hit.
Did you have any idea, like, with Gary, like when you wrote that song, you said like you had a good feeling that day, like this is a hit, and it took 5 years to get out.
Yeah.
With that day with Jon, like when you guys wrote that, was that another one of those moments where
there was no doubt?
Yeah.
I mean, I knew when we got finished with that song, and he did too.
Yeah. And
it was funny because I remember him sending that little work tape to management, and they were like, "Holy smokes, this is crazy! This is great! This is exactly what you need! This is, And he's such a good, he's a great writer and a great artist, but he's a really good judge of like when you've done it too. He's like, oh yeah, I'm cutting this, kind of thing. And that makes you feel good too. But it was just unique, man. It was, he's got that ability. He really does. He's his own. To me, he's a true artist. In today's world, he doesn't sound like anybody else. What he does is very unique, and he's like we said, he's everything I think that a star, is supposed to be. He's got that it factor. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. All right, let's keep going. CMA nomination.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, you always play it, but if you ever didn't play it when you were here, I give you a hell of a time, because it's one of my favorite songs and you sing the crap out of it. But I want to dive into Randy, and you've got a couple great songs with Randy.
Thanks, man.
How did that relationship come to be? And just let's talk about those.
Well, I kind of knew Randy in passing. We've gotten to be really, really close friends, and I just can't. I don't know. I can't say enough good about that guy. I just, not only as a writer, as a performer, man, his voice is second to nobody, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think he probably is my favorite singer, in all honesty, because I've spent so much time with him, and I've heard him it's amazing what he does. But even on top of that, man, him as a person, I admire him so much. He's such a good friend. He's been so good to me. And I've just seen him in so many situations, and he doesn't change, man. He's the same guy I met the very first time. He's such a humble, loving, big-hearted human being. And I'm a fan. I'm a fan of his singing, but I'm a fan of him as a person, man. I really am. I think a lot of Randy, man. And he's been a good friend to me, and cut, a lot of my songs that we've written together, and then songs that we didn't write together. I mean, Anything Goes, his very first single, John Wiggins and I wrote, and what a vocal on a record that he put on that, and that's kind of where it started. Like I said, I kind of knew him from passing. He was signed at MCA back, he's a guy that had a deal at MCA and lost that deal and then got signed at Universal South, and made that first record. And I got to be a part of that with Anything Goes. And that really kind of kicked off our friendship and writer relationship. Once again, I was writing at EMI at the time, and Ben Vaughn got us hooked up for me to get on a bus and go out on the road with him and write some songs. And that first trip, I think we wrote maybe 4 or 5 songs, and he cut 3 of them on his second record, and man, we just started writing songs together, and Like a Cowboy came from. It was really, I was out on the road with him. He was opening for Gary. I remember Gary Allan on a run, and I was out on the road writing with him, and they had teed up a single at radio, and I don't remember. I just remember that the label he was on, the major artist at the same time, dropped a single the same day he did, and they acted like they didn't know it was happening. But it was really a eye-opener for Randy, like, man, I gotta move on. This label's not going to do for me what I need to have done. And it was his second record, and they ended up going in and asking off that label, which was, I'm sure for him was kind of as any artist would be, it's like, oh man, what am I doing? I got a record deal. Am I going to get another one? And I remember him, I was talking to him about it, and he said, yeah, man, I just feel like it's time for me to move on. And so they asked out that deal, and they let him out. And then he went and, got him a new deal at Stony Creek with Benny and those guys over there. And he called me, and actually before they got the deal done, he goes, man, I need some songs. And so we got together and wrote, and man, we wrote Like a Cowboy. That
just
was
the
song.
two of you.
Yeah. And that was the song that I think it was the very first song they ended up cutting, him and Derek George, which ended up getting him the record deal at Stony Creek, and the opportunity for him and Derek to work together on that record as Derek producing. And man, it was crazy, because he got that deal and he ended up cutting that song. And I was out on the road writing with him on and off through that process too. And I mean, you had How Country Feels, and couple other big, there was like 3 number ones in a row off that record. And I was out with him, and I was thinking, man, is Like a Cowboy going to be a single, because he would go out and do it every night, and the crowd would go crazy. And I remember him telling me, he goes, man, I go out there every night just to sing that song. It's something I love. And so I didn't really push him on it, but I remember us being on the bus one night. I don't know if he remembers it or whatever, but we were sitting there talking. And I was like, H, because that's what I call him. I've always called him H. And I was like, H, man, are we going to get a single? And he looked at me and said, man, I will not leave this record till that song's a single. He said, I'm telling you right now, I'm not leaving it until it's a single. Ended up being the 4th single off the record. And it of all those songs, number ones, it went to number 2. And like you said, it got us nominated for CMA Song of the Year, and just a phenomenal, once again, I love all the artists that have cut my songs, and there's so many great singers from, Pardi to Stapleton to Randy Travis, George, Garth, whatever. And it's like, but for me, Randy is, I don't know, I just have gravitated towards him as a writer, and love just to hear him sing the songs that we write and that I've written that he's cut. It's just, man, his vocal on Like a Cowboy is second to none.
Yeah.
That's a monster record, and what he and Derek did together in the studio, and then his vocals, and you've seen him sing it live. I mean, when he goes out there, all he needs in a stadium full of people is a guitar and him singing that song, and it is phenomenal. I've stood and watched him, do it from the side of the stage and just hear the crowd. Those things never get old, Chris.
Yeah.
They just don't, I've thought about it many times, go back and get on the bus with those guys after you've watched them play a song in a stadium full of people singing along with it. And it's got to lay in that bunk and just thank the Lord for the opportunity and the blessings, man, that come along with, being given the opportunity and the talent to do this. But, man, it never, at least I hope it hasn't. I always try to give thanks to, what God's done for all of us. I mean, it's, he writes these songs, man. We show up and we put in our time and sweat, whatever, to be successful. But at the end of the day, man, it's where it comes from.
Yeah.
I mean, it's where it truly comes from. We just, we get lucky enough on days that he goes, okay, you showed up today. I'm going to give you this. I'm going to give you this little nugget right here.
Yeah.
And you guys run with it and see, but that's, and for me anyways, that's where it comes from. And very thankful for it, man.
Yeah.
Extremely thankful for it.
What were those whispers that day on the bus with Like a Cowboy? It was just you and Randy. Whose idea was it?
Well, it was, actually we wrote that in town. I was writing for Keith Stegall at the time, and we wrote it over in Berry Hill at his office. He had another house right across from the main office over there, and had a little studio in it. And Randy and I were in there that day, and I remember it like we were talking. One thing I love, again, about writing with Randy is he'll wait on it, man. I knew I threw out a couple titles that day, and he did too, some things. But they just never made us both feel like, oh, that's what we can, we got to write that today.
Yeah.
And so I remember we threw around a couple ideas and maybe even tried to start on something, and it just wasn't feeling right. And we walked up the road there and kind of got a little bite to eat and come back, and we're sitting in there. And I remember him, as we were talking about songs or something, and I remember him saying, George and Garth, those guys had cowboy songs. They all had a cowboy song. Man, I'd like to have one of those. And I've done a lot of it. I've been that guy, team wrote forever and kind of grew up in that world. And that Like a Cowboy thing, I'm not 100% positive, but I remember us talking about that, and I feel like that title or whatever just kind of fell out. And, Randy and his, beautiful ability to sing, man, started messing with that melody, and we just kind of fell into it. And that story of, guy who rides away and comes back, and it just kind of presented itself, and we filled in the blanks because we kind of knew what we wanted to say.
Yeah.
Just trying to, make it as anthemic as we could, I guess, is kind of the way. But man, and then, just to get to sit there and hear him open up and sing that lyric back to you, it, as it always has for me, writing with him is he can really get your creative juices flowing when he's singing something back to you.
Yeah. That
voice is undeniable. And I remember even being on the bus with him at times, mornings we get up and start trying to write or something, and he go, oh man, I don't know if I'm gonna have it today. He'd be up there singing, it'd be earlier and stuff, and I was thinking, whatever, man, your early morning voice is better than most people's.
He said that we were hanging 10 years ago, probably down in Key West. Mm-hmm. And I mean, how things are at the festival down there. And he said the same kind of thing. And then he got on stage on that pier to kick off and just like, what?
Just melt you, man.
What are you doing?
I know. Yeah. I know. I've thought the same thing because it's so often, you're sitting there with him and, and he's kind of getting going. He's, oh man, I don't know. I sing and I'm just blown away anyway. Yeah. But then, fixing to walk out on stage and you're on the bus and you walk out with him and stuff, and he steps right out there on that stage and just opens up, and it's like, yeah, whatever, man. I don't think, and I mess with him till I'm like, yeah, man, I don't know if you had it tonight, thinking the whole time, man, you just parted the waters out there in front of everybody, with that voice and ability that he has to sing, and such a great writer too, man. That's that's the thing I love about him too. I mean, him and Jon both they're just really great songwriters too. You know, they're not just great singers and performers and stuff, but they can hold their own in any room with anybody. They're both great songwriters too.
Yeah. Well, you are too, man.
Thank you, man.
Both vocally and as a writer. I'll turn it over to you. Anything goes, or whatever song you want to do. But I'd love to let everybody hear from your perspective. Just a verse, chorus of one of them.
Oh man,
you want to play something for us?
It's early.
I know.
I'm about like how it's really early, man.
I don't know if you got it, man.
Normally this time of night, you wouldn't find me here. I'd be reaching for a goodnight kiss instead of one more beer. Never take a second look at the blonde across the bar, much less invite her over or let things go this far. But anything goes when everything's gone. You ain't around to give a damn whether I do right or wrong, so bring it on. Anything goes when everything's gone.
Man, you're so good, dude.
Blessed, man. Very blessed. That song was very special, man. John Wiggins and I, once again, John, he had that idea. He said, man, I got an idea called Anything Goes When Everything's Gone. And man, it just floored me. And I was like, I want to write that day. He said, yeah, that's why I threw it out to you. And so we wrote it and didn't get finished with all of it that day. And then he came up to my house and we finished it there at the house a little while after we started it. And yeah, it's just been, one of my favorite songs I've ever been a part of. And it's been it's funny, Chris, it's been one of those songs that I feel like has probably got me in the room with a lot of other artists, just because they loved it so much, that particular song, and other writers as well. I hear it a lot amongst the younger, writers these days. They're like, oh man, Anything Goes. It's one of my favorite songs. And so, having that song, and I feel like it's probably opened doors and made other artists and stuff, writers, want to write because of that song.
Yeah. So good, man. We got just a little bit more time here, and I want to briefly touch on something that I think is really cool, the Back-to-Back Foundation. Oh man, thanks. Yeah, Carrie and I, my wife and I, started that. Golly, this year's 20 years ago. Yeah, it was it's a foundation that we started, a nonprofit foundation that gives Christmas to those that can't have Christmas where I'm from. We started it with 5 families. Right after Nothing On But the Radio, once again, it was one of those moments, man. I was getting up early to go write, and I just felt a little tug on my heart. It was like, God was saying, okay, man, I blessed you with this. Now what are you going to do with it? Yeah. And so that particular Christmas, we found 5 families that couldn't have Christmas, man. They were struggling. And we ended up, buying them Christmas, man. We just went and shopped, got all their Christmas stuff, took it to them, delivered it to them. And out of that, the next year, we started a show with songwriter friends of mine, came up, and we sold out the convention center in my hometown, which was like 650, 700 people, I think. And when we took that money and turned right around and gave it right back to the community, every dollar we've ever raised in that community, man, of these shows has stayed in that community of Christian, Trigg, and Todd County. Those 3 counties where I'm from. Continues to pour right back into the community. I've never made a dime off anything, don't want to. It's all volunteer based. Every dollar we make, like I said, turns right around. And through the years, man, last year, it's crazy to think about this, but last year we passed $1 million. We'd raised over $1 million through that foundation. And the number of families that we've helped, and the school system, the St. Luke's Free Clinic, the Boys and Girls Club up there. What we've been able to do, because of some songs, man,
a lot of my buddies, who have come up there willingly to give their time and do a show. And that's our once a year fundraiser. We do it every year in July. And I mean, I've had, artists, Dylan Carmichael's done it. Casey James did it. My buddy Steve Warner came and did it. I mean, gave of themselves, man, just to come, put on a show and help us raise money to continue to, make a difference in that community. And it's a farming, community up there where I'm from. And we've, like I said, it's been a big blessing. After, like I said, 5 families. I think last year we helped over 150 families. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's crazy to think about, because in all honesty, Chris, I never had, I just felt like it was something I needed to do, to give back to somebody for the blessings and what it turned into and what it's done. Yeah, I mean, I can't take credit for it. I just, like I said, kind of felt like it was something I need to do. And I kind of feel like maybe I took that first step, and then through the years, the blessings God has put on it and the people that have given to that foundation in my community, they've supported it a tremendous amount. But it's amazing the people that I go play for all over the country that have, hey man, don't you have a charity foundation? Oh yeah. And I'll talk to them about it, and man, then it'll, they'll end up sending something, through our website, backtobackfoundation.org, and it's got a donate, place on there. And, they'll just like, oh man, by the way, I kind of sent you something. I mean, it's amazing. It's really amazing. Yeah. And what we've been able to do. But it's, I mean, that's what we do at Christmas time. Carrie and I, man, we don't give each other gifts and stuff like that, man. For 3 days, we give ourselves and deliver and give back to the families that we find through the, school systems up there and stuff that are just, they're just in need of some help, man. Yeah. For whatever reason, what's going on in their life, they can't give their family Christmas. And man, to me, it's like, that's tough to think about. And we all know people that have been in that situation, and I don't, we don't go in there, saying, hey, this is, we feel bad for it. It's like we have an opportunity to help somebody. Yeah. So that's what we've chosen to do. And the blessings that have come from it, man, are just been amazing. Chris, it's my favorite part of Christmas, man. Yeah. It's being able to do that. You listen to those whispers and those tugs, and you, I love how humble you are as well. It's man, thanks. Yeah. I mean, it's, we're here. Yeah. To matter. Yeah. And I just feel like I've been able to do that through this guitar and songs and performing something that I didn't, I've worked at it, but that was a part of me that God put in me. It was a love for music and a love for singing and a voice and a ability to write songs. And yeah, man, I work at it. We all do, but it's, not everybody's given that gift. And I think that's our job. Yeah. If there's a job that we're given, in this life, is to pay attention to what talents we have and to use them our best ability. And for me, I love it, man. I still love it as much today as I did moving down here 31 years ago. It's still a drive to, come to the listening room, man, and play a show and get to meet people and hear people sing along with your songs. And then, get to meet young writers and stuff that move into town. And, hey, man, what would you tell a young writer, And, you've done it too. It's like, man, work. Yeah. Show up. Yeah. Because you never know what day you never know what day that is going to be the day that's going to change your life and give you that song that's going to make a huge difference. And, yeah. So I still, man, I'm as soon as we get done with this, I'm going to go write another song. So there we go. It's part of it. Yep. All right. Well, to wrap it up, I always end with this question. So everything that you've gone through, mm-hmm.
if you're able to go back to Hopkinsville and look at 8-year-old Brice right now, what advice do you give yourself?
Man, probably just follow your heart, just I think maybe be a little more aware of, and I try to pay attention to as much of those feelings and that, like we were talking about, tug on your heart or whatever. But I feel like, if I was going to tell an 8-year-old something, is just, man, be true to who you are and pay attention to, what talents you have and try to use them to the best of your ability. But, man, just be true to yourself and trust in the fact that, the faith that you have and who you are and what you're doing and why you're here, just, trust it and work at it and, try to do your best to, show up every day and use what those gifts are that you've been given and, continue to, do what you say you're going to do and work, man. That's, to me, that's just pour it all in, and maybe even, don't, be a little more fearless, I guess is what, I think maybe that would be a little bit too, is because I think, as you're young, you have that, oh man, I don't know if I can do this. Should I try this or whatever? But I think nothing's gained by staying in your comfort zone. I just, I think the things that make us, who we are is when we step out from our comfort zone and try things that we're a little bit afraid to do.
Love that, buddy.
Yeah. I think that would be part of it too.
Yeah. Love it.
Thanks, buddy.
Man, thank you for being here.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you, dude. I know I tell you that all the time, but it's cool to look around this room and see what you've built because, like I said, I man, we've known each other a long time, and I've seen you struggle over there at that very first place and then move down to the next one, and it was like, man, Chris is staying in this thing, and then you've landed in a spot where it's really, you've knocked it out of the park, man.
Thank you.
And not only that, what's interesting, and I know we've had this conversation, your love for songwriters, man, has, because of this place, has given songwriters an opportunity to not only bring their talent and their songs, but to financially make a difference with what you're able to do these days, man. Playing these shows and giving a writer opportunity to come play, but also, leave here with something in his pocket that I guarantee you has made a big difference in a lot of younger songwriters struggling in this town when they could come in here and play a gig and get paid to play a gig and it be something that matters. Buddy, that's a game changer for a lot of writers in this town, man. So thank you for doing that.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Well, everybody out there, thank you so much for listening. This has been another episode of Stories Behind the Songs, and you've just heard a guy who had a manager helping pay his bills when he got dropped from a label, lost his publishing deal, and just got married, to come full circle and help 150 families have a Christmas this year. And man, that's if that's not inspiring, I don't know what is. Thank you guys for listening. This has been Brice Long, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to another episode of Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair. Make sure to give us a follow on Spotify if you enjoyed this episode, and make sure you click that notification button so you can keep notified when new episodes come out. We release brand new episodes every Tuesday, and you can find us on YouTube at Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to send us a comment letting us know what you thought of the episodes. We love getting your feedback, and share this with your friends. The more we grow, the more that we can keep doing this. It's our mission to bring you all of these great stories behind the songs from some of Nashville's most iconic artists and songwriters, publishers, producers, everyone in between, and a lot of my great friends. We love what we do, and we love sharing their stories with you. We appreciate all of the continued support. Thanks also to all of our sponsors, and we will see you all next week.